Welcome to SportsBeat KC, presented by Underdog. We're talking Royals today with beat writer Jaylon Thompson and columnist Vahe Gregorian. Well, I will ask you if it's beginning to feel a little like baseball on a day in which snow is in the forecast.
It's funny you say that because for the last several weeks, every day has felt like they ought to be playing ball here right now. And today, I think, as we got together for this, I think I-70's closed with snow coming through Salina. And
Central Kansas, yeah.
And it's gone down about 30 degrees. We've seen some chilly opening day moments. And my goodness, Blair, was it I think it was the first year I moved here, 2013, there was a snow out in May.
Right, I remember that.
So these things can happen.
It happens. Has anybody looked at the forecast for opening day next week? Do we know what it's supposed to be next Thursday?
I haven't looked, and every time I ask my OK Google thing, it seems to give me a complicated thing. I think usually it only gives it to you 8 days out. What's today? We're 8 days out.
Yeah. We should have it. We should have it somewhere.
I think we got our best man on it right now. We'll see
let's see what the weather says.
Let's have another trip to the mound here and get the bullpen warmed up.
So, according to the trusty weather app on your iPhone, Android tablets, it says 63 degrees with a low of 42, bright and sunny on Thursday, March 27th.
Yeah. Well, we'll take that.
Absolutely, we'll take that. Like it. Wear a sweater. Bring a jacket. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Season's about to start. Royals coming off of a playoff year. It's the first time we can say that in a decade. And hope springs eternal, I believe, with these Royals. Both of you have been down to spring training to report on the team, get a glimpse of things. And Jaylon, is the optimism? Should we be optimistic about this team? Is it founded? Are we feeling good about the Royals, just generally speaking?
I think you should feel very cautious about your optimism in the Royals this year. Looking at what they did last year, going from 106 losses to winning 86 games, making the playoffs, being a part of a wild card victory against the Baltimore Orioles, and then playing the New York Yankees. You ask anyone throughout the league, they said that this Royals team, they're on the come up. They're reaching a point where they could be a contender in the American League. Now, the players believe that. You talk to anyone that's in that clubhouse, they have got more growth, more development, more maturity. They know what it takes to get there. The question is, can they come back and do it again? They were remarkably healthy last year. They didn't get bit by the injury bug in the starting rotation. You got guys like Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha that's going to be another year older. Can they pitch those 30 starts again? Can they be guys that you are counting on? And how much will the offense hit? Those are the questions that you have to really consider it, but the Royals believe they can be there. And if they believe it, I think as a Royals fan, you should have some of that optimism too, because they showed you that they can play against the top teams in the league. You have an MVP candidate, which I think Bobby Witt Jr. might be the MVP this year if he has a good year. But can you do it again? That's the question in KC.
And we're going to consider both the lineup and the bullpen, but I want to start with the rotation. You mentioned a couple of names. We know now that the opening day starter is going to be Cole Ragans. That's the right call, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Cole Ragans should be the opening day starter based on although, Lugo was Cy Young runner-up a year ago. He could have gone either way, but why do you think Ragans got the call over Lugo?
I think this organization has a lot of trust in Cole Ragans. If you look at starting last year, being the opening day starter, he was really, if you think about it, the first big acquisition that J.J. Piccolo kind of made when he kind of took over as the general manager of the team. Getting him for a role, this Chapman kind of set the wheels in motion for this revival that the Royals had. I think for Ragans, he's just so cerebral. There's stuff that has come out about how he keeps notes of every start that he's made the last 4 years, and he just he's so dialed in and in tune to what he wants to do and what the Royals want him to do, and he's proven it. Every time he's taking the ball, whether it's opening day last year, the first start of the playoffs in the wild card against the Orioles, against the Yankees, he rises to the occasion. And you want that guy, that left-handed starter, to kick off your year. And I think that's why the Royals chose him.
Love his stuff. I mean, 227 strikeouts a year ago, the second or third most by a Royals pitcher in club history. So much to like about Cole Ragans.
But yeah, I love his stuff, and I like Jaylon's point about. I mean, in a way, he's sort of the catalyst of this era under JJ and the transactional nature of what they've been trying to do, and I think of all the changes they've had, right? You've got Bobby Witt, who's really is going to be in the MVP conversation for years to come, I think, and you've got some back end bullpen development, all these things, Pasquantino's development, but I don't think anything has redefined how we look at the Royals more than the starting rotation. And it starts with Ragans, and then it obviously includes the signings of Lugo and Wacha. I think they're bolstered this year with Lorenzen starting the season with them now. And I think that's where, you can get excited about the Royals, but also the trap door is, can they keep the kind of health that they had last year? That's a lot of innings out of a lot of older arms, or arms that have had, say, two Tommy Johns.
Right, young, early in his career.
Yeah, for Ragans.
Yeah, for Ragans. We'll get to the fifth starter here in a second. A couple of candidates. We think we have a favorite in the role, but Vahe, you spent some time with Seth Lugo in training camp. Nice training camp. I'm still in my Chiefs.
Yeah,
mode.
yeah.
It's spring training. Apologies. What did you discover about Seth?
And just to make a point for our audience, by the way, there is such a difference, is there not, Blair, between Chiefs training camp and Royal spring training in terms of accessibility, ease of the situation, and the Seth Lugo interview I did
I would also
reflects that.
Humidity, but go ahead.
Humidity, yeah. I thought you were going to say humility, but humidity. But the way it works at Royal Spring Training, I mean, it's so loosey-goosey for the media that, I mean, when a player is done for the day, his few innings, we go down into the clubhouse while the game's going on and talk to them. The Chiefs, it's different. We'll just leave it at that. But in the case of Lugo, I was starting to have a conversation with him about sort of his early days, and the clubhouse was closing down. Then he was like, yeah, we can go outside and talk. So we stood outside and talked for a good long while. And the thing I think is really interesting about him is what's the old joke about, an overnight success, decades in the making. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's really blossomed now. Second in Cy Young last year. He could not even get a college scholarship offer. And so we talked about a lot of things like that. And I found it pretty fascinating. And there was a time as late as 2015 when he was getting ready to quit baseball and figured he'd probably be a UPS or a FedEx driver and maybe go back and get his geology degree. Mm. So then things changed. And I'll leave it there for the mystery of Seth Lugo. But pretty cool. And I think that's one of the things that it ripples through the clubhouse a little bit too. These guys, for the most part, have all had to go through some things, and I think that does something for individual character, but also a team dynamic.
He was I forgot the exact title, but he's from Louisiana,
Bossier City,
which is Shreveport,
right?
And he was either like Grand Marshal of the Independence Bowl or something. He had some place of honor at the Independence Bowl this past season, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, that was probably one of his greatest honors before last season, because the last thing I found that like the most distinguished recognition he seemed to get before this was, a fourth grade thing that he won for being able to throw the ball far. I mean, so anyway, I'll stop rambling on about it, but it's a pretty neat story and part of the Royals' DNA now.
For sure. Okay, so Ragans, Lugo, Wacha, Lorenzen. Who's number 5, Jaylon?
Number 5 is more than likely going to be someone that we all know. Kris Bubic has really stepped into that role. And the Royals kind of tipped us off on what they wanted to do with Kris Bubic earlier this offseason, saying he's going to transition to being a starter again. That's what he was before he went down with Tommy John surgery in 2023. And there's a lot to like about Kris Bubic. I mean, his IQ and baseball knowledge of pitching, if you just spend 5 minutes with him, he will break down the psychology of the game. And it's just like, it's that Stanford education that he has in his background. But he's a guy that he proved that you could put him in the bullpen coming back off of Tommy John, and he just worked. And it was like magnetic for that team going down the stretch in the playoffs. Now you're going to take that mentality that you gain from being in a bullpen, and I've talked to several guys on the Royals that have done this. You go to that bullpen, you have to be on from pitch one. You can't wait around and try to feel your way into the game. You got to be on and be in it. I think Chris Bubic is going to take that mindset, bring it back into that fifth starter spot should they make this official, and he will thrive in that role. I think that he had glimpses of it throughout his career. 2023, before he got injured, he had 9 strikeouts against the San Francisco Giants back home in front of family and friends. I think he can be a really nice piece for that fifth spot, but that fifth spot might just be a revolving door. Remember, they have guys like Daniel Lynch the fourth that they can throw in there if needed, because you can't really put Chris Bubic into something where he has to pitch 30 starts a year. He might want to do it, but the Royals might decide, hey, we don't need all of that from you. You can throw Alec Marsh. He's going to get an opportunity when he gets healthy, overcoming a shoulder injury that kind of delayed him a little bit. You're going to look at Kyle Wright, kind of same thing, had a hamstring. He's getting back. So they have guys that they can put in that fifth starter spot, but I think Chris Bubic gets it right out of the start.
Okay. I'm with you with Chris Bubic. Big fan. I think he's poised to have a big season, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm also kind of enamored with what Daniel Lynch did last year, and really happy for him. I think back to the 2018 draft class, and how pitching heavy it was, and basically the Royals threw all of their efforts into pitching.
And all college pitchers.
All college pitchers.
Yeah.
And Lynch is what's left.
Yeah,
of that.
Lynch and Bubic.
Bubic,
right,
and they because they traded Brady Singer.
Yeah.
Carr didn't work out, and so.
What's interesting, finish your point. I'll come back with.
Well, I was going to say, Lynch has had his ups and downs, and mostly downs, with the Royals, but I just he's on an upswing now, mm-hmm. and I was really impressed with him and happy for him when he kind of broke through at the last season.
First class guy too. You really want to see success for him. The point that you made me think of is that, Singer's gone, didn't work out for Jackson Kowar, but a guy we didn't mention yet is sort of the ongoing aspect of Singer, which is the trade for Jonathan India.
Right.
And I'm just thinking about that in terms of it's not just what you get on the major league team from the draft, it's what it allows you to acquire, right? So Singer's gone, but a measure of what that class did and will be is still going to be found in Jonathan India.
That's true. And we'll get to the lineup here in a second.
If you look at what Daniel Lynch has become, he is the perfect embodiment of how the Royals have developed as a team from 2024 to this year in 2025. Daniel Lynch, I will never forget this. Last spring, he was fighting for the fifth starter spot again, right? Same position. His mentality was, I wanted to be a starter. He came out and told the media this. He said, I know it's a tough decision that they sent me down, but I wanted to be in that role. He goes through AAA, works as a bull in the bullpen, gets that confidence. Now you talk to him again a year later. He's like, I still want to be a starter, but I kind of like being in that bullpen. I kind of like being counted on. I kind of like when it's dirty and grimy and they need something to get done, they come to me. I think that just shows the development of, hey, it's not always about how you view yourself as a pitcher. It's about what the team needs. And I think that mentality just out of Daniel Lynch himself, being up here to stay in the bullpen, he doesn't mind it anymore. He wants to do it. That's the growth and development that you get when you see a team have success and you want to be a part of it.
Whether he is a starter or in the bullpen, he's on the opening day roster, is he not, Daniel Lynch?
I think he should be, but it depends on what the Royals want to do. Because you don't know how much Alec Marsh or Kyle Wright is going to give you starts in. If they are not on opening day roster, are they on the injury list? Are they still working their way back? So do you need him at AAA depth? Or do you want to have him in the bullpen as another left-hander? Last year the Royals had 4 left-handers at one point in the bullpen. I don't think they might need that this year because they have Angel Zerpa and Sam Long that can fill that role, and you got Carlos Estevez, which we'll mention later, coming over. But he's proven that he has done enough to be on this opening day roster. And if that's what they go with, I could see him in a long relief role just in case.
Yeah, I guess the point I was trying to make was among the 5th starter candidates, when you mentioned Bubic, Lynch, Marsh, and Kyle Wright, Lynch is the guy I see, becoming an 8th bullpen member.
Yeah.
Over now, Marsh and Wright.
Yes, because he's done it before. He's done it at a high level last year. They like him in that role, yes.
Okay, and so let me give you my bullpen, and you tell me, Jaylon, if I'm on the right track with Lucas Urseg and Carlos Estevez probably sharing the closer role. Maybe Estevez starts in that way. And then the left-handers you mentioned, Angel Zerpa, Sam Long, and then the right-handers, Chris Stratton, John Schreiber, Hunter Harvey. So that gives, and if you throw Daniel Lynch in there, that gets you up to 8.
Yeah. And the thing will also be important to add in is what they do with Carlos Hernandez.
Yes.
He's out of minor league options. They like that he can throw 100 miles per hour. Now, it might not always go where he wants it to go at 100 miles per hour, but I mean, do you want to put him on waivers and allow another team to be like, you know what, we can work with him, we can get him corrected, and then you potentially lose that firepower that you did have in your organization? So that's going to be something that I believe they're really going to have to decide. You can't look at the numbers of spring training. You got to look at the guy as a whole himself, because the numbers, honestly, in spring training are a small sample size. You can't really count on it. But all the work they put into Carlos Hernandez, are they willing to get rid of that to move forward in a win-now mode and let a guy that you believed in, you cultivated, walk out the door? That's going to be the question, because you still have minor league options with Daniel Lynch. You can send him down and bring him back up.
I like this bullpen. I certainly like it a lot more than what the Royals started with a year ago.
Yeah, last year, I mean, maybe this is harsh, but last year you felt like you were guessing at the bullpen, right? Like just throwing stuff out there and hoping. And, there's guys with track records now. And Jaylon, I'm sure you've encountered this more than we did. I was only there briefly, but like a guy like Zerpa, they really like him. They like the progress he's making. And he's not, the first or second option out of there. But that's the thing that I think is maybe a little exciting, is that the guys who'd be, in the sort of the secondary component of that being a caliber better. And I don't know, I can't quite remember who the perceived opening day closer was last year, but it wasn't Estevez or Lucas, obviously.
They weren't with the team.
And they're just a totally different tier above that. So yeah, it's another one of those things that let me step back a little bit. One of the Royals' frustrations was, and J.J. Piccolo, the general manager and vice president, talked about it openly, was they hoped to get a bigger bat, right? One more. Maybe that could still happen. I don't know. But once they couldn't do that, they basically had the philosophy of trying to improve in, I think he even used the term, in the margins. Doesn't mean marginally, but I mean in all these other ways, incrementally, that you could be better. Let spackle this in, spackle that in, make that, reinforce that. And I think that, you see that in some of the things they've been able to do with like the bullpen.
Yeah, I think John Sherman, Royals owner, said it best. You go out and you try to get a middle of the order bat, you couldn't find that. Teams, let's be honest, the Royals, they made calls to different people that went different places. Can't make a team trade for someone if they don't want to. But to get Carlos Estevez in that way close to the beginning of spring training, they did a lot of work on him last season at the trade deadline. They couldn't get the trade done then. They get him in free agency. And if you look at what his impact could be, you open up a door where now you can use Lucas Urseg in a Josh Hader fireman role, where you might need Urseg to come in the 7th inning when the game is on the line and they have their 3, 4, 5 guys up and you need a strikeout. you can feel confident putting Urseg in that role because you have Estevez to close out the game late. It's the same thing they did with the Phillies when he came over from the Angels last year. They use him in that closer role, and they allow some of their other relievers to, be dispersed in a way where they can operate the 7th, the 8th inning, and it helped them out. So I think the Royals will do the same thing.
Take a swing at picking sports this baseball season with Underdog. Playing on their app is as easy as choosing higher or lower on players' stats. Get them right, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Sign up today using promo code KCSTAR to get a gimme pick as a part of your first cash entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you deposit. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
All right, let's look at the lineup here. I'm going to run it down. You tell me where I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
This is my projection of the opening day lineup. Jonathan India leading off.
Yep.
Now, is he going to be the left fielder or DH, or what position is he going to play?
I think Jonathan India is going to bounce around. I think he's going to be sometimes at second, sometimes at third base, sometimes in the outfield. The key for him is, and J.J. Picollo said it too, he's an everyday player. They're okay with trying to figure out where he's going to be defensively. They want his bat in the lineup at the top of that order. So I think he could be in different places this year.
Okay. Bobby Witt's hitting second.
Shortstop.
Vinny Pasquantino is your first baseman hitting third. Salvi's going to back cleanup and catch.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Massey, your opening day second baseman.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Renfroe, right field,
hitting
sixth. MJ Melendez will be your left fielder hitting seventh. Michael Garcia, your third baseman, hitting eighth. And Kyle Isbell will hit ninth and be your center fielder. Is that a reasonable guess at an opening day batting order? And
yeah, I think
position?
so. I think so. And it depends on what they want to do with the designated hitter. Because if
Right.
you're going to have India be in there, let's say you put India at third base, then does he come off the bench and be a defensive replacement? Like, how are you going to work the lineup to keep India in there? So it might be something where you put India in left field, you let MJ Melendez be a DH the opening day. Now maybe that's how they play it, depending on the matchup. Hunter Renfroe might take that spot, but they're going to figure out how they want to configure the defense, but India is going to be at top of that lineup, and that's why they got him.
Let's talk about which infielders have been getting reps in the outfield in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've identified most of them here with India. And Melendez, of course, was a catcher. Now he's in the outfield. Massey,
Garcia.
Garcia. So I know one thing J.J. Picollo likes is versatility in his players. That's a big thing with this Royals regime. And but are they convinced they won't lose anything by having an outfielder or have an infielder like Garcia or India play in the outfield?
Well, Garcia is going to be probably on if you need to give Kyle Isbell a day off and you're going against a tough left-hander, you can put Garcia in center field. But Kyle Isbell is going to be the everyday center fielder because this is like his defense at Kauffman Stadium. And you don't want to throw Michael into the deep waters of Kauffman Stadium where it's 410 to center field and he has to learn that and he hasn't played there yet. So they're going to ease him probably into playing center field to begin the year. But I think that left field spot is going to be the key. It's going to be a matter of, all right, if Salvi is not catching and he's at DH, you have Freddie in, what do you do with left field? Because now you have a couple of guys that either going to come off the bench or they're going to be in that spot. So, but I think that India probably gets the first crack at it because you probably want him in left field. You want Massey at second base because he's a better defender there. So that's what I think is probably going to happen.
It is interesting, right? They've come to embrace the versatility between it to some degree. I think it's JJ reacting to Matt Quatrero, the manager's desire to play that way. But I can't think that they love the idea of just every day somebody's going somewhere else. I mean, at some point, I'll just ask you this way, Jaylon. I mean, one way or another, don't you want to identify whether, let's just say, break it down to these two, Massey at second or Massey in left, India in left or India at second?
Yep.
Like, what do you think they've established that way? I mean, is if they want both their bats in the lineup, which one's the better makeup for them? Seems like Massey at second.
Exactly. But the thing about Massey at second, though, is can his back hold up? Because, he's had back strains and things like that. And then one of the reasons why he was going to left field to begin with this spring is because it takes a little pressure off the back, not having to play there every day. But I think if all things were equal, this is how I think they would like it to be. Massey at second primarily. You probably have India at third, and you have MJ Melendez playing left field. Because then you were able to use Michael in different spots. Like, you need to spell Isbell, you can put Michael in center. If you need to spell Bobby a day, which Bobby's never going to miss a day. He doesn't want to miss a day.
But he could DH day.
He could DH day, and you could play Garcia at short. Or India could DH, you could put Garcia at third. So, ideally, that's what I think they want to happen. But think about it. If MJ Melendez was hitting consistently, they wouldn't even have needed to go out and look for another bat.
Right, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's why I mentioned those other guys too. I don't want to give him the short shrift. I mean, MJ's got a chance to come into himself here, but I guess we'll just see. Boy, Jaylon might not know this reference, Blair, but as you went through all those permutations, Jaylon, it made me think of the old "Who's on First" routine. Right. Like, I have no idea how you're supposed to work this Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
This is a lot of moving parts, and I do guess it's their preference to have that versatility and flexibility, but at some point it does seem like you're well served to have, let's say 6 spots that are going to basically be the same day in, day out.
Yeah, somebody is not going to play every day that ideally would play every day because you just can't. There's someone has to sit out, especially if you're going to have Salvi catch and DH and then back up Vinny at first base. So it's like someone has to figure out their role. Freddie for me is going to also be a catcher and play. So when he's catching, someone is not going to play because he has to be in the line to catch. And that's going to be, you wrote a story about Salvi being able, Vahe, to play multiple days. Do they cut that back this year? What is your thoughts on that?
It was 158 last year, if I'm not mistaken. That's a lot for a, 75-year-old guy who weighs, he's a big man.
Yep.
And the thing I can't help but think of this every time we talk about this with Salvi, though. It's like it's been a decade since the Royals were talking about, we're going to grind him down if we're not careful, and people were blasting Ned Yost for playing him every day. The guy is just a Terminator, and he keeps going on. I guess at some point the fountain of youth runs out, but I'm amazed by him. And I do think I talked to Matt Quatrero about this a little bit. It might sound counterintuitive, but if they rest Salvi more, just let's say 10 games, they actually might be able to catch him more. Play him at catcher more is the way I should phrase that. And again, it sounds counterintuitive because that's the most demanding of those things. But I sort of offered it to Matt as a selling point to Salvi, like, would that work with him? And he said, yeah, maybe. So we'll see how that plays out. It's hard to remember almost that Salvi only caught 90 games each of the last 2 years. And it was a stark drop-off from like 127 in 2022 to that. I think the 90 is probably sustainable, but one way or the other, I don't think you want the 158.
And you also got to add in the point, too. Freddie Fermin finished as a finalist for a Gold Glove as a catcher last year.
Yeah.
His defense could also go into that point of, all right, Salvi, we give you 90 games. We might even give you 80 catching, and you got to spend some time at designated hitter.
Well, one of the things that's a side point to that, and I can't remember whether it was JJ or Matt Quatrero that said this, but when we were talking to them, Salvi so trusts Freddie with the job that part is an easier sell to him than it might have been with somebody who, is more injury prone or just not as good. So it's just that Salvi does not like the DH.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And
he wants to play first when he's not catching.
Yeah.
He wants to be in the game, part of the game. And I'll say this too about Freddie. He gives you a professional at bat too. You don't waste a plate appearance with him in the box.
Yeah.
He's a good hitter.
He could probably be starting for a lot of teams.
Yeah. So here's my question for you guys. Let's say the key to this is going to Vinny Pasquantino and being like, would you be willing to play a little DH and allow Salvi to be at first base? Because, Vinny is an everyday first baseman. we'll get to it later, but he's really part of the reason why you might not see Jac Caglianone at first base if he does come to the Royals. He might have to be an outfielder or something in the minor leagues if he learns that position because you have Vinny there. So, like Vahe said, it's a Rubik's Cube that they have to figure out, and it's going to be difficult to do.
And you want the options, right? That's the thing. I mean, in a sense, it's really a good problem to have. But part of the reason it's a problem is you don't know how certain guys are going to do. Like, you wouldn't have to be thinking this way if you knew, let's say, what MJ Melendez and Hunter Renfroe would do. Maybe you'd look at it differently if you had a crystal ball that says, oh, they're going to have rebound seasons or breakout season in MJ's case.
Bobby Witt, 160 games at shortstop. That's about what we know.
That's
sure.
about He played 100.
That's it. Nothing else. Nothing else is set.
He played 161 games last year, and the one game he took off was after they clinched and made the playoffs.
That's right. He's amazing. We'll devote a whole show to him later. Let's go through this quickly, though. We spent some time on Freddie Fermin. You've got 13 pitchers, 5 starters, 8 in the bullpen. You've got 9 position players. That leaves 4 to fill out your roster for the 26. Freddie Fermin's definitely going to be one of them. You have to have a backup catcher. Who are the other 3?
Deron Blanco. I know he dealt with some Achilles injury or pains or whatnot, but if he can go,
they want his speed.
They want his speed. So I always would pencil him in as a spot. Then your last 2, you're coming down to how do they want to play? Do they want to play defense and versatility, or do they want power and production at the plate? And I have it in 2 different buckets. I have Nick Prado versus Nelson Velasquez. Both are out of options. Both are in that power category. Velasquez came up in 2023 after coming over from the Cubs. 14 home runs, 40 games. Tore it up. But he struggled last year at the plate, and he struggled in spring training. He hasn't really been hitting well. Nick Prado, homegrown talent. Teams don't like to give up on homegrown talent because they believe in him. They invested in him. But Nick Prado had a 30.4% strikeout rate last year in AAA. His lone appearance in the major leagues, he pitched in a game when the game was out of reach. And with Vinny Pasquantino back and Salvador Perez playing first base, they moved Nick Prado to the outfield to just try to give him an opportunity to make the team. He has to prove he can hit to be on this team. So it's going to be, who do you want? Do you want the power of Velasquez, or do you want Nick Prado to give you the outfield versatility? Because Velasquez, to be honest, he's kind of just a DH at this point until he shows better in the outfield and as a fielder. So what do you decide? A guy that has pure power, Matt Stairs type role back in the day, or someone like Prado that could go out to the outfield if you needed someone in the outfield? That's the question. And the other part is, what do you do with Nick Lofton, Kevin Biggio, son of Craig Biggio, or Harold Castro? One of those, they're all utility guys.
Yeah.
Biggio and Castro are left-handed. Nick Lofton is right-handed, but he's homegrown. He's been up here. They really like what he can do. He has shown more power, but he's a great hitter. So what do you do with that versatility? I have it as Biggio and possibly Prado making the team only because he's the homegrown talent, and you don't want to get rid of that. But that's me.
Interesting, though. They've got some decisions to make.
Yeah, they do.
So we'll know early next week. All right, let's switch it quickly to prospects. We know that Jac Caglianone is not going to start the year with the Major League team. That was never in the cards, really. But pretty nice spring training for the Royals' first-round pick. I think number 6 overall last year. We all have been able to talk with him. He seems like a genuinely good person and a guy you really pull for. I wouldn't be surprised to see him taking some Major League at-bats this season at some time. But he's going to start, I believe, in Double-A, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where he's expected to start. And I think that's a good place for him because when you look at the minor leagues, a lot of the best prospects are playing in Double-A, and then teams are now more willing to jump to Double-A to get their prospect to come to the Major League level, kind of bypassing the AAA system. So with Caglianone, everyone say how much of a professional he is, what he can do in and out of the clubhouse. We all know the power's there, but his ability to adjust the pitching, I harken back to his 444-foot home run he hit against the Milwaukee Brewers in spring training. He faced Aaron Savali, who is a top veteran MLB pitcher with years of experience. First 2 pitches to Vahe fooled him. He swung way early on a breaking ball. He looked at a strike, 0-2 count. Then he worked a couple of balls, fouled some pitches off. The 8th pitch of the at-bat, over the right field wall. That just shows the development right there of he can adjust to a veteran pitcher and still thrive with his ability. And he hasn't struck out in much at all. I think that's the key thing for him. So he's a real deal. He's the Haley's Common that Kansas City needs. So he's going to come for sure.
That's a great snapshot of him. And he is so impressive. And we were sort of joking about this, but Sam McDowell and I were out there at the same time, and we were just watching batting practice. And I don't remember seeing anything like it for a long time. I'm sure I have, but recency bias, but it was mesmerizing. And the play, one at bat or one swing that Sam talked about that stuck with me too was basically a line drive that a second baseman almost could have jumped and caught, going 30 feet out over the fence.
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the power. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say I was so struck by his poise and the things people had to say about how he's listening, how he's seeking out advice, how he's keeping notebooks. He's the guy sitting in the front row taking notes, asking questions. Doesn't have to be when you're of that stature. It reflects, I think, an earnestness about what he's trying to do.
All right, guys, there's much more to get to, which is why I'm glad we have more shows to do with you guys in the upcoming weeks. Really appreciate the conversation, Jaylon and Vahe. And big thanks to our producers, Monty Davis and Randy Mason, for putting together. Thanks for joining us on SportsBeat KC, presented by Underdog Sports. We'll do it again soon.